We welcome you to Iowa City, Iowa on a beautiful early autumn day in the American Midwest. 80 degrees for the opening race of the 2019-20 Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup season. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Schlanger with the one-time World Championship medalist Tim Johnson. This is the first of 9 races on the World Cup calendar this season that goes from here in mid-September all the way until late January. And Tim, it is the first and always one of the best.
Always. You know what the fans get to see here in Iowa, the riders get to experience with something like Mount Crumpit is like no other race on the circuit. And I can tell you that this afternoon is going to be a battle for both the men's race right now and the women's race to follow later on.
We are at the Johnson County Fairgrounds in Iowa City. This is the 4th year for Iowa City hosting the UCI Cyclocross World Cup, and the men's race is about to commence. And the top riders are always in the front row. These are the riders we expect to battle for the podium today.
Looking at Cornevent Kessel right there, the Telenet Belwaz Lions team that is sponsored by Trek, one of the big supporters of the sport here. Quentin Ehrman's podium finisher here a couple times at Cyclo-cross, looking for a great opportunity here. I think Michael Van Torenhout, Palisades Bingo, he's going to be a fighter for that podium spot, maybe even the win against this rider right here, Toon Aerts, last year's victor.
Toon Aerts swept both of the U.S. stops on the World Cup here in Iowa City, as well as in Waterloo, Wisconsin. Lawrence Sweck of Belgium, also one of the favorites, and one of 15 Belgians in the field. Lars van der Haar, one of 6 from the Netherlands.
You know, tire selection is key for any cyclocross race, but especially here with changing conditions. Saw some rain earlier on, now drying out. Gianni Vermeersch here. I think he's going to be one of the guys who will be kind of hoping for something to happen with the very front of the race so that he can squeeze his way onto the podium. Iserbyt here, he's a former under-23 world champion, looking to make his mark in the World Cup. He hasn't quite made it onto a podium yet, but he's definitely been up there fighting a couple times so far in his young career.
And now set to begin the new cyclocross season on the World Cup. Always a lot of anticipation. After a summer of training, some of these riders competing in mountain bike, they are set for cross to commence. And now the focus is about the whole shot and getting to the front and around that opening turn first.
Always good to get a clean start here. These athletes know that they need to be able to get off of this pavement section through this really tough grass and gravel section through the old start-finish line for the majority of the races that happen here at Cyclo-cross. But hard right-hand turn here. Joris Nieuwenhuis already making it up from the second row into the front of the race. Had a little bit of a slip out. He's able to get it under control, get back on the gas. But the start of these races, Steve, is just full speed. You can see they have to pick a line. Is it going to be up on the upper side where you see Quentin Ehrman's, or down low? It's the choice that you make here that sets you up for this next couple corners. But the start of a cross race is always so intense. Everyone just fighting for position the whole time.
And also so important to how the race is going to evolve. You see how spread out it gets so quickly. If you're at the back, early on lap 1, you may be out of contention. So very critical to be near the front. And now, as we move through this first lap, let's highlight some of the interesting course features to watch for.
Well, what you see here are these large flyovers that allow the course to weave its way throughout these fairgrounds here. This is the main part of the course. This is Mount Crumpit. Those barriers traditionally force people to get off their bike, but these riders are so strong and so skilled that they can actually ride while some others run, and that's what we're seeing here. Joris Nieuwenhuis trying to go for it, unable to make it, getting up almost to the very top, having to hop off. It is a big energy drain to run, and that's what riders will try to avoid as much as they possibly can. You'll see riders trying to stay on the bike as long as that next pedal stroke will bring them. Some people actually feel like running is a strong point of theirs, and they'll hop off right at the bottom and will run all the way to the top, and know that for them that's a good choice to make.
And now into this sand pit. This is the largest sand trap in cyclocross in North America, over 200 feet.
Well, sand is not fun to ride through, I can tell you that. It's a real drain. It slows you down almost immediately. It's really tough to stay straight. You see Stephen Hyde there in the Stars and Stripes, the U.S. national champion. But getting in there is key to making it through. But look at this replay here of that climb. You can see the riders being forced off. You've got Dan Soitek hopping off, Lars van der Haar. You know, as far as Neuenhuis was able to make it on the first lap, I think that they will be able to ride this thing as we get later on in this race.
They go up Mount Crumpit 3 times per lap, and overall this is a course made up of 95% grass and dirt, and then pavement and gravel over the final 5%. So a lot of difficult terrain to cover. And Mount Crumpit, overall, one of the most distinctive features in cyclocross in all of North America. It's certainly the one focal point of this course and one of the most demanding sections that the riders will have to tackle.
Yeah, that's a lead change right there. We were expecting Toon Aerts going to the front, taking over. He's not willing to wait. He passes Iserbyt, who was on the front earlier. This is a very long section of climbing. Traditionally, cyclocross does not include up and down mountains, but that is exactly what they're dealing with here today. It's one of the toughest courses on the circuit.
And you come to Iowa, you don't expect to find mountains. And this is one of the biggest hills that they have in this part of the state. And now watch how treacherous this descent is off Mount Crumpit.
Yeah, some of these lines are really tough to figure out. A lot of riders practicing throughout today and yesterday, trying to figure it out. You know, the weather change has made this course pretty treacherous. The mud has been changing. It's gone from very, very slick. Now it's actually got a lot of traction in there. So you see the speed. The riders in the front is really fast. Toon Aerts making that look really easy. You see Quinn Ehrman's sitting in third position. Looks like he's going to be setting himself up for a good finish later on. But that descent, really tough. I think if you can get through your first lap without having a problem at the very start or a problem on the descent of Mount Crumpit, you will be happy, because that will set you up for a good race later on.
So Toon Aerts in first place there, as we are still on the first lap. We won't know, in fact, how many laps we'll have altogether for this race until about the end of lap number 2. It's at that point they determine how many laps it'll take to get us to about a full hour of racing. As you see the plank barriers that these riders are just bunny hopping. Some in other levels of cyclocross will get off their bikes and carry them over these plank barriers, but these guys are so adept that it looks relatively easy.
Well, that's why cyclocross in the U.S. is so exciting, because people will have been racing on those same barriers all week long, and now the big boys from the World Cup and the fastest women in the world will tackle those same features, and they're going to do it about 4 times the speed, and they're not even going to get off their bikes. That is, cyclocross is always a great sport to show people's athleticism, not just pure power on the bike like you see here with Toon Aerts. He's able to put down wattage numbers that would just blow your mind, but he's also able to be so dynamic on the bike, and he's able to make those jumps that he can. It's like Dan Soitek here getting up this climb. It's tough. You can't see it in this image exactly how bad it is, but it's so steep. A lot of traction issues. You can see riders trying to pick to the left side or the right side, trying to find a little bit of something to grip their tires into. But this group of 3 is settled in a little bit. Iserbyt, one of our favorites, as we were mentioning, he's a young up-and-coming racer who's got a couple World Championship titles under his belt, but he hasn't quite gotten up to the front. You know, Steve, one of the things we haven't talked about yet today is really the story of who's not here. Toon Aerts, last year's winner, setting himself up for a great chance at that. But last year he was racing against the world champion, Lars van der Haar, who's unfortunately at home with an injury. He's watching this on television. He's still going to be months before he comes back to fighting with these riders. But without him here, Toon Aerts really has his hands full with the new crop of riders trying to take that win.
And at the end of lap number 1, it is the 25-year-old defending champion Toon Aerts who has the lead here in Iowa City. 6.5 minutes for that first lap. This course just over 3 kilometers long altogether. And they always target for these races to come in at just about an hour. So after this next lap, they'll have a good idea as to how many laps they'll have to do in order to get us to that 1 hour of racing. But this is a very hard, intense, demanding 1 hour. And you see the separation that's started to develop here as they head out onto lap number 2. And that's because of the pace being pushed at the front by our leader, Toon Aerts.
Well, they're getting chased by Lawrence Swake there at number 10. He's in red, coming around the corner. He's got Neuenhuis with him. You know, there is some chance that a slow start will be something you can't get over. You can't possibly chase the best riders in the world back, but you know, some of the best riders that we see in this sport are able to take what happens and kind of work with it. Can make up for an early mistake, make up for a mechanical even. But second time up Mount Crumpit, Toon Aerts gets a clean look at it, and he's got some momentum. He's able to just squeeze over the top of that plateau, making himself the first rider to make it up and over here in this men's race.
Iserbyt, he decided to carry his bike up. And Quentin Hermans also got off, dismounted, and carried his bike. But Toon Aerts staying on the right-hand side of the course, getting some traction, and staying on his bike all the way to the top of the hill.
Yeah, that's called using the entire course. He went all the way from the far right all the way to the far left. You know, watching that slow motion really shows just how hard it is to keep your tires connected to this dirt, get some traction in there.
Tim, describe what it's like to ride through sand like this when you're trying to maintain speed.
Yeah, you know, you can see kind of the facial expression is like one of concern and, you know, utter commitment, but you really don't know how it's going to go. You don't actually know if you're going to make it through that sand every time. This is a really deep sand section, so it does take a lot of energy just to keep moving forward. But Iserbyt really doing a good job to stay close to Toon Aerts this early in the race. Those two riders have really split themselves off of that group. You know, almost 25 seconds back to the third group on the road.
Well, Quentin Hermans was right there with these two. It was a trio out front on that opening lap, and he really got gapped off going up Mount Crumpit. As he got off his bike, he was carrying the bike to the top, and that's really where he lost the time. And now there he is coming around the corner there, but losing some significant time, now trying to recover.
Yeah, Belgian national champion Toon Aerts on the front. He is teammates here with Quentin Hermans, number 11, right there in third place. So even if their jerseys are a little bit different, he is current Belgian national champion. But, you know, watching Quentin really suffer on this climb, it illustrates just how strong that rider who is in good form, who is really good on climbing courses like this, like Toon Aerts. You got the Powell Cezanne team trying to put it together. Luckily, they do have a teammate here in the front in Iserbyt, just holding on to Toon Aerts' wheel.
How will we see that teamwork manifest itself most prominently today?
Well, it's really tough to say just because it is so difficult. You know, if it were a flat course, you could really put together some work. You know, you could really help each other out by tackling some of the drafting sections together. But here it's so split up. The energy it takes to get up this climb and then down, it's really tough to give anyone else a hand. You know, I kept hearing leading into this race just how little recovery time there was. So imagine you have to sprint up a hill, fall down the other side, and then immediately sprint up another hill. And that's exactly what this course is like. It gives very little time for a rider to refresh themselves and get a deep breath in there.
The course in pretty good shape overall. It has been dry the last couple of days. In fact, the weather has been almost ideal yesterday and today. Temperature right at about 80 degrees each of the last 2 days. It rained the day before, so softened things up, but it's been drying out here over the last 48 hours or so.
Really quick through those barriers. Iserbyt doing a good job trying to hold that wheel. Quentin Hermans. Almost every single rider in the World Cup at the front will be bunny hopping those barriers. It's just what is done nowadays. It's an adaptation and a transition that a lot of riders have been able to teach themselves how to do it, and it doesn't come easily. So that is a skill that you know, a lot of amateur riders will watch this and just can't imagine how they're able to do that. And up this little stairs section, there's Swake. Not having a great start, actually. You know, I expected him to get up there. He's usually a lot faster. Lars van der Haar, again, another rider you'd expect to have at least a shot at the whole shot, but he has really not found his way to the front at all. Toon Aerts just laying waste to the rest of the riders. Iserbyt, the only rider able to hold that wheel. Quentin Hermans just sitting off the back. Swig's trying to make his way up. There's Dan Suta. We've got number 9 there, Michael Van Torenhout. He was on my list of favorites for this course. He's a rider who's been on the podium quite a few times at the World Cups, but he's always racing against someone like Wout van Aert. He's always racing against Mathieu van der Poel, who is really the best rider in the sport of cycling, bar none.
Across all disciplines.
All disciplines. Unfortunately, he's not here either.
No.
So really, it's a wide open race to win. Looks like Toon Aerts is doing a good job of putting his name up as I'm going to be the first guy to have a shot at the win today.
So it's a twosome at the front at the end of lap number 2. Toon Aerts with the lead, followed closely by Iserbyt, and they have quite a gap here at the end of the second lap in Iowa City.
To sit on the wheel, and now leading the charge coming across.
So now the question is, will it be a two-man race the rest of the way? Toon Aerts cedes the lead, and at least for the moment, gets some help looking over his shoulder to see how close that next group, that quartet is, the second group on the course.
Yeah, I know we've got a couple strong riders in there. Lawrence Wake on the front. You've got Quentin Hermans there in third place, trying to get up there. Gianni Vermeesch, he's the rider in white and blue. He's one of those riders we're keeping an eye on for this race today. You know, that section right there is really, it's tough to see with this angle, but it's muddy, it's tight, there's some ruts in there, and then this transition from, you know, the wooded section onto the field has taken quite a few victims in other races, but you can see just how much intensity it takes to get through there unscathed. Toon Aerts back in the front. Interesting to see how they're swapping and sharing the load here, but this is how hard it is to get up those barriers when you don't.
And it's always the bike's fault. It's always the fault of the bike, never the rider.
That we're going to get an ID on that number right there. It's number 50 something it looks like. I don't know, might be number 52. Van Dale, but you know, getting a clean
look at
shot.
this. Toon Aerts rode this climb last lap. Today, this is going to be his second time carrying up the first 3 times.
Well, even with a clean shot, it's still almost impossible to ride that thing. So that goes to show how great he was that first time up. But you know, the other riders behind him, Steve, definitely saw that and said, "Oh, whew, at least we don't have to sprint up this thing to keep chasing him."
So this is lap 3 of 10 now. It'll be about a 30K race overall. It's all said and done. Aerts maintaining the body position through the sand as the leader. Second group getting a little closer here on lap number 3. Trying to reel them back in, but Toon Aerts is a good front runner. When he takes the lead early in a race, he is hard to fully bring back.
Yeah, great dynamics in this chase group. You know, seeing how tight this is right now is great because I think it's going to hold things together a little bit longer. You know, not having a big winner, a big champion like Wout van Aert or Mathieu van der Poel here, it gives everyone that chance that they might not normally have. And you see, you've got Swake now making his way back up here. He's going to be on the back wheel of these riders if they're not careful. Just a couple seconds back. Looks like he's a little bit more in control, making up for that tough start that he just had. A bigger rider, you know, obviously more power. You can just see the size of this guy. It looks like he can ride through Mount Crumpit, but you have to play a waiting game. You just said, Steve, 10 laps of this course. That is so much climbing. It's almost as if they were doing a road race out there that had more than 1,000 feet of climbing in it, but they're going to do it within 1 hour. Really intense.
Boy, cyclocross has become such a tremendous foundation and a springboard for riders to go on and do other bigger things in the sport. You mentioned Wout van Aert, who just this July rode his first ever Tour de France and won a stage there. It was a huge part of his team. Did crash and get hurt. He's on the road to recovery now. And Mathieu van der Poel, who's been here and had success in cyclocross in the U.S. in the past. Earlier today, he just wrapped up the overall win at the Tour of Britain. He won the final stage in Manchester, England. Won 3 of the stages overall and the overall title there. That guy is an absolute beast.
You just can't hold him back. And being someone in cyclocross who's watched him come up through the different categories, winning the junior world title in Louisville, Kentucky in 2013, being his first time to America, he has really not stopped. He's winning everything that he gets into. And I think one of the best parts about this sport is you can be someone who, not just dabbles in other sports, but you can be successful at it. We see cyclocross riders at the front of the World Tour races quite a bit nowadays. You've got Julian Alaphilippe, a former World Championship medalist. You have Peter Sagan, of course, who was really the first rider to make that transition work. It's just on the women's side, Marianne Vos, really the first rider to be world champion in multiple disciplines. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, she just won mountain bike worlds a couple weeks ago in Mont Saint Anne. So really, I think it's about people who are cyclists who just have this incredible talent to pedal a bike, but it's just where they put it.
As far as Mathieu van der Poel, he will race some cyclocross this season, but just came off a few mountain bike races this summer and now is headed to the Road Cycling World Championships in just over a week's time in England.
And that was a big decision to make because, he really has the world at his fingertips. And his decision to change his schedule to not come to these 2 U.S. World Cups really had, an impact. It had an impact on these riders right here. Iserbyt getting on the front, making this off-camera section look easy. Toon Aerts, it looks like he's having a tougher time than he did in those first couple laps. Lawrence Wake closing that gap, making his way up. Vermeesch, Ehrmans, you got Michael Van Toorn out there, Sota. So this group, if this grows to a 6-man group, it's going to be really tough to figure out who's going to be able to come away with this.
Is it going to grow to that 6-man group?
It could. You've got a couple teammates here. Toon Aerts looking back, see who's really going to be chasing. One of the things you have to do is be able to think, and you're going so hard. Your heart rate is just really pumping through your body. Your heart's in your chest, ready to explode out of it, but you have to be able to think and kind of reset a little bit. Lawrence Wake taking this moment to slow down a little bit. Iserbyt on the front, but not really pulling too hard. Vermeesch trying to get across, but he's got Quinn Ehrmans with him.
Iserbyt, Aerts, and Swank. Front 3 at the end of lap 3, but there are 4 other riders in pursuit who are within striking distance here as this race gets more dramatic and exciting. Now heading out onto lap number 4.
Pretend to, as we're not even halfway through this race, sit back just a little bit so they are going to be looking back there. We should be.
So we have 7 riders within about 5 seconds as they head out onto the 4th of 10 laps here in Iowa City, the opening race of the 2019-20 Telenet UCI Cyclocross World Cup season.
And that is on the back.
Our defending champion from last year, Toon Aerts, the 25-year-old who won the overall World Cup last year. He's a European and a national champion. He's been at the front ever since the opening gun, but he's got a lot of company right now.
That group really did come back together exactly as we wondered. Right after that long straight section through the front straight, taking a minute here. Iserbyt still in control. He's picking his own way around these corners. He's very slick out here. Looks like he's got a pit issue he needs to deal with later. A lot of times riders will have bikes with other types of tires in the pit. They'll have, just in case, it might rain or a thunderstorm might come through. So you'll have tires that are ready for a mud race all of a sudden. But there are other things that are issues too. One of the things that riders I see dealing with today is that it's so hot. If you have a chance to get a water bottle and actually get some hydration in there and get a feed, you will take it. So if you pick up a bike that has a water bottle on it, you can go ahead and grab that. Cyclocross has some arcane issues with...
oh, there's a fall.
Quinn Ehrmans tripping up a little bit. It's a stiff, very, very steep climb up this thing, so it's not really a surprise, but it's...
Now look at this.
See if we can figure out what that is. Yeah,
that was Iserbyt pointing at something, maybe at a rider behind him.
If he had a real problem with his bike, you'd know it. You'd have to be able to stop immediately and get back in the pit. Maybe there was another issue with that pit lane.
So 7 riders now at the front. on the 4th lap.
So we're getting some updates on our American riders in there. Top 15 for Stephen Hyde, U.S. National Champion. Gage Hecht had a great start, also top 15. Looks like he's starting to slide back a little bit. But we have got a really good mix of development riders as well as the best riders that we have here in North America from both U.S. and Canada. You know, season opener of a World Cup. It's really about who does their homework and who has been able to train to get ready for just this unique intensity of cyclocross.
16 American riders altogether in this field of 52 for the opening race of the season. Fitness always such a big issue in the first race. Some coming off a mountain bike campaign in the summer, so bringing that fitness into cyclocross. Others training specifically for this, and this is where you really get that true barometer as to where you stand. You may think one way coming in, but then realize the reality itself is entirely different. And this race always different from some of the others that the riders encounter throughout the remainder of the season. Very warm and dry conditions in the American Midwest here in Iowa City, but later on this winter it'll be cold, snowy, hard, packed, mud, dirt. So they face a variety of conditions throughout the year, and this is the one time that you can typically rely on pretty warm and mostly dry course conditions. And
Jim Aronow's leading that chase group. He's got 2 more teammates tucked in behind him. Corner Van Kessel just behind another rider who's been on the podium here at Cyclo-cross in the past. You know, the Telenet Belwaz Lions team is big. You know, they really support this sport. They brought their entire squad over. You know, as we talk about these other teams that aren't here, it's a big effort to get over here. But once you're here, you've got a shot at World Cup points. You are live on television back home in Belgium, where all your fans are watching. Lawrence Wake here, he knows what is at stake. This is a World Cup that he has a shot at winning, so he's going to put everything into it. But in the meantime, I think they're really trying to figure out what is Toon Aerts doing, and is he going to be the guy that he was last year, absolutely crushing the field, winning by almost a minute ahead of Wout van Aert, doing it again in Waterloo as well.
Well, that's not the case right now. Toon Aerts, who took the lead on the opening lap and led for the first couple of laps, is now within that front group of 4, but he's near the back, as it's Quentin Hermans who has moved up towards the front, and now it is...
Well, we got some jerseys open there. Yeah, Jim Aronow's, Corner Van Kessel, looks like they're not really ready for this hot weather. You know, it is only 80 degrees, and we say that because it has recently been summer here, but it's 80 degrees with a humidity of like 80%, so no one feels comfortable, whether you're out here watching the race on the sidelines or, you know, racing at 100%.
Now Lawrence way back to the front. Several lead changes here recently. Toon Aerts now back into 3rd place. We've seen different riders from this front contingent take a turn at the very front.
Let's get another replay here.
Stumble going up the steps.
Well, that is Quentin Hermans. Quentin Hermans not having a good job. It looks like he's got a couple extra inches on his shoes there. He's finding it difficult to get up the stairs and on Mount Crumpit. You know, race rhythm is something that comes from putting together these training sessions away from the races, and then maybe getting a few races under your belt so you feel more comfortable. Quentin Hermans not having a good start to this day.
Lawrence Sweck leading this group of 4 with 2 chasers who are trying to come back fully into the group now at the end of the lap. So it is Sweck, the 25-year-old Belgian, who won a lower-level race here 2 years ago. Also won Cross Vegas out in Las Vegas 2 years ago. Pulling up somewhat, and now a group of 6 spread out across the line at the end of the lap.
Yeah, they're really trying to figure out how they're going to do this. You know, you take stock of someone in a couple seconds, just taking a glimpse at them. But it's another thing to really say to a teammate or an enemy and really start to figure out what they're all about. Michael Van Torenhout going closer to the front. He had a tough start. As we saw, he was taking his time to get up here. Typically one of the riders to really attack the beginning parts of the races, so he really is kind of keeping that holstered a little bit longer. Iserbyt's still in the front, though. Chase group coming along. Got Tom Musin tacked onto the back of that. What looks like a Telenet Belwaz training camp ride out there. Oh, we have our good attack here. It's like up on the right-hand side. That's Michael Van Torenhout. Tuneer's taking a look at him.
Drops back into his line. Van Torenhout really looking to take the lead for the first time here. He's number 9 from Belgium, one of 15 Belgians in the field. Tuneerts right now in second, then Iserbyt in third place. But nobody getting any serious separation off the front at the moment. Wow. Now Tuneerts with an acceleration.
Until Mr. Aerts decides to lay down some power. You know, he's leading into this part of the course because he wants to get to Mount Crumpit first. He wants to have a clear shot at trying to ride this feature, these 2 barriers, railroad ties embedded into the dirt. This is a 15-plus-year-old feature here. This climb has really confused riders at all levels, including the World Cup level. Tuneer's trying to stay on, not able to do that.
There's only one time so far he has made it up riding this part of the climb. Every other time he's been carrying or pushing the way we see him right now.
Iserbyt having a good run. It looks like he's very comfortable getting off of his bike, getting those feet turned over. But, you know, if you were able to see that, that entire hillside has footprints basically baked into that dirt. You know, when it was wet the other day, we've had more than 1,000 riders since then. And it's really tough to ride. And that's why you see Tuneer's trying to find anywhere he can to get some traction.
Yeah, this may be the World Cup race, but there are multiple races over the course of a 3-day experience that they're putting on here in Iowa City. We had racing yesterday. We've had other races earlier today. We have more tonight and tomorrow. This is lap number 5 of 10 in this first of 9 races on the season.
Corne van Kessel there getting first into the sand. Lars van der Haar, 2 Dutch riders, very familiar with sand and able to put down the power. Tom Musin, was talking to him earlier today. He's here with just 1 teammate and no staff. It's like he's a privateer. You know, usually when he's racing in a World Cup in Europe, he's got an entire team RV and, you know, as much staff as he could possibly put to use. But, you know, as Mathieu van der Poel's not here, it's going to be a cheap trip to the U.S. to do these first couple World Cups. Tom Musin really doing a good job out there. But Tuneer's, man, he is putting this down. Big power. Iserbyt able to match him, stay right on that wheel. Gianni Vermeesch having a great climb. He's coming over in third in the white and the blue. But you can see the head bob there by Michael Van Torenhout, number 9. He looks like he has just said, that is too much for me. I can't possibly keep that pace up. That might be another separation at the front.
And here's Quinten Hermans. We've seen him stumble and go down so far, and now losing time as a result. Tuneerts has shown the most aggression at the front of this race, and Iserbyt, the only one who's always been able to match him. He was the only one who stayed with him in those opening laps, and he's still with him right now. As they come down Mount Crumpit, weaving around these switchbacks through some muddy tracks. We've seen riders slipping and falling here over the years. Everyone making it through cleanly this time.
Yeah, those 3 riders really separating. You've got Surza trying to close the gap down. Van Torenhout on the back. He doesn't look like he's got much to give right now. Letting one of his teammates take over. Take a look at the sand here.
You drop down off the climb at speed, coming through the sand. Just trying to keep things straight, stay on the bike.
Well, those are not motorcycles they're on. That is all human powered, but sand getting thrown up every single time they hit the pedals. Back together again. These kinds of races are so tough to be one of those guys in that group. You have to constantly watch other people while you're trying to make the most of your own body. You know, you're trying to have your best race you can, but you know, how much do you rest? How much do you hide from those riders you're with? You know, how much do you hedge against someone attacking later on in the race? You need to really conserve as much as you can, yet still use as much as you can.
These are the chasers. Group of 5 here. Herman's just in front of them, and then the group of 6 out front led by Tuneerts. Are you surprised we haven't seen someone like Ertz get away and create a larger gap, or are you pretty much seeing what you expected from a group of half a dozen at the front?
Well, you know, I think this is generally what we were expecting, was that because it is such a wide open race that there will be multiple people playing a role. But I think that Toon Ertz probably is trying to wait a little bit. You know, he is a rider that can handle this kind of elevation change. They finally cracked this part of the group. You know, you've got Warren Swake here really struggling up that climb. Looks like he did hit the ground on one side. His left side had some dirt on there, so I think he might have hit the deck. So now that this group is split, you got Toon Ertz, Iserbyt, and Vermeesh, all three of them looking to see what's happened and why. But yeah, these group dynamics constantly changing. You really have to keep your head on straight, otherwise you might get confused and kind of lose a moment where you can take advantage of it, or you know, put yourself out there too much and use too much energy.
So this will mark the halfway point. 5 laps down, 5 to go in the opening race of the 2019-20 Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup season. Here's Lawrence Sweck, who has lost some time. He was the leader for a brief time in the first half of the race, but now trying to recover.
Yeah, it looks like there really was a crash there. Swake's entire left-hand side is covered in dirt, so he definitely went down. And Michael Ventorno was gapped off also, so that group of 6 is now just 4. Quentin Ehrman's still in no man's land, trying to make his way back up, but that group of 4 solidly apart from everyone else in this race.
These riders over half a minute down. Toon Ertz at the front on lap number 6. Taking the low line here. They all follow. This group of 4 out front. At the tail end, Stan Sota. 4 riders, all Belgians, leading the way.
Taking a look here at his heart rate, maybe how much time has elapsed. You know, that's a really key piece of information. You want to figure out where you are in space. You know, you've been battling back and forth over and over again in this group. You kind of lose touch a little bit. Taking a look at his watch there, getting a little bit of info. Hey, you know, how is Toon Ertz doing? I need to know what I need to do to try and win this race.
Iserbyt still sitting in second place, then Vermeesh and Sota. 4 Belgians at the front. And here we go, back up Mount Crumpit once more. Toon Ertz once again trying to stay on his bike and ride it.
And he's got it. That is all he needs to do. Iserbyt also able to do it, so that is tacking up enough so that 2 riders can make it up and over. But you saw, Steve, they came to almost a complete stop. That is like a track stand on this uphill. Really tough to do. Skills of these guys, it's just incredible.
That was the second time that Toon Ertz was able to ride all the way up, but the first time for Iserbyt to stay on his bike. And now, as a result, as they hit the sand, they have a bigger lead. 2 Belgians at the front, Ertz and Iserbyt.
Been the agitator in this race. He's
just 21 years old for Iserbyt, so this is a big move for him to be that close. Gianni Vermeesh, a little bit of a gap here over Sota. You see him running in the white. He's just trying to make it up as fast as he can.
Toon Ertz came so close to having to hop off, it looked like, but got over that little knoll and then was home free with Iserbyt on his wheel.
Speaking to Scott Dobert and Sven Nys, both working with that Telenet Baloise team, talking about the different gear choices and what they were going to have to use. This course has so much elevation change, so instead of having just a big front chainring that will allow them to do, you know, more of the flat courses, they had to bring it down. They had to bring it down to smaller sizes that we would consider to be more, how do you say, palatable. But, you know, they don't want to have to use too much of that musculature to get up and over the climb. They want to be able to spin a little bit more, so they had to bring down those sizes. Front chainrings going down from 46, you know, down to 42. In the women's field, going from 44 down to 38 and even lower than that. But anything to make Mount Crumpit a little bit more enjoyable.
If you can call it that.
If you can call it that.
Tolerable. Well, given the elevation changes you mentioned, as well as the fact it's the first race of the year, the weather, it is warm today. What is the biggest challenge the riders are facing here in this opening race?
I think it's probably just keeping in your plan. You know, Toon Ertz having won here before, he knows what it felt like to do that last year. He knows what kind of power it took to do it, what kind of training he had going into it. You have a lot of questions when you start a World Cup, first one of the year, really the second big race of the year, but you know, it's the season opener for many. You have so many questions. You start to answer them as you get going, and I think it's really trying to stay in your plan and not panic when things go wrong, but also being able to trust in the fact that you've done your homework all summer and you can go for the win later on.
Over halfway through this race, 37 minutes in. Toon Aerts and Iserbyt are our two leaders, both from Belgium. On the last lap, it was a group of 4, but that last time up Mount Crumpit really created a gap back to these two now in 3rd and 4th. Vermeesch and Sota. Over the plank barriers. This is the battle for 3rd at the moment. Vermeesch and Sota as they go over the barriers. Now at the front, Aerts and Iserbyt, pretty much the story that we started with on the opening lap. The two strongest riders, and that's still proving to be the case here as we get deeper in.
Yeah, both clean through all these sections. A little bit of a slip right there. I spoke too soon. Toon Aerts washing out a little. And I heard that the course was changing from lap to lap in pre-ride, but now that the race has started, you've got you've got 60 riders here lapping this thing. It will continue to change every single time. A little bit of a slip out when you don't expect it can really damage someone's race. Right at the top of that little climb, there's a route that really forces a rider to change all of their technique and get up and around it. Saw some riders having real issues with that yesterday. Looks like Vermeesch going up and over, taking a look back, trying to see exactly where Swake is. We've got Toon Aerts and Iserbyt. These two riders very evenly matched. Looks like these are definitely going to be our two fighting for that win in 20 minutes or so. You know, just under 40 into this race.
Yeah, that's the one thing that has not changed. We had a group of 7 at the front at one point, but these two were always present, whether it was just these two or that larger group. And now they are starting to pull away and expand their lead from the rest of the field. End of lap 6. Iserbyt and Aerts out in front.
1 and 2 as they roll across. And now the clock starts back to Johnny Vermeer.
This is our rider in 3rd place, Vermeesch, and in 4th, Sota. 10 seconds and 15 seconds respectively behind our two leaders. Lawrence Swake now rounding out the top 5, trailing by over 20 seconds. Iserbyt now comes to the front. Well, what could be the difference between those two at the moment as they jockey for the front of the race, but really not seeing one any stronger than the other?
Well, they're both young. You know, they're both relatively young riders, but you know, Iserbyt, he's got nothing to lose. You know, he's really up here trying to be the best that he can. So I think he's actually showing a lot of spunk right now. I mean, he's just been on the front, back and forth this whole time. He's not afraid to pull. He's not afraid to push the pace, but he's also able to be within himself enough to look around. You know, he's thinking, he's looking, he's figuring out where other riders are. You know, you look at a lot of riders who push themselves to the limit, and they're in a little bubble, and nothing else really kind of gets in there. Looks like he's pretty comfortable at this pace, and putting Toon Aerts into some difficulty. Hitting this climb first. He's going to see if he can do this from the front, but nope, he's going to hop right off.
Last time, both of these rode all the way up, but this time, Iserbyt quickly decides to carry. Toon Aerts is going to make it on his bike all the way up.
You know, we see he doesn't lose any space. He might have added a little bit of intensity there. It looks like he might have a heart rate spike at the top just from having to sprint with his feet instead of using the pedals. But you know, he was really able to narrow down that win by Toon Aerts there. I'm sorry, by being able to ride it. So you have to make that decision. Do I hop off when I'm ready to do it, or do I keep going until I fall off? He made a good call there.
For Ertz, that was the third time he was able to ride all the way up. But Iserbyt deciding early in the climb just to carry. Vermeesch creating a little distance between himself and Sota in fourth now.
The only rider that can foil him at the moment is a rider
alone in third and alone in fourth. That last step on the podium is very valuable for those two riders. So they're going to be fighting as much as they can, but they need to get with, you know, Sota needs to get up there to have a shot at that. But right now, that gap, they're just evenly matched.
Good race developing here on the 7th of 10 laps. Toon Aerts has the lead. Eli Iserbyt staying right with him. Pedal stroke for pedal stroke in second place.
The difference in size of those two riders, Steve, it's really noticeable. You know, there's so much climbing in this course. A rider like Toon Aerts is more than a foot taller than Eli Iserbyt, but you know, he's able to do this. Obviously difficult for both, but
is there an advantage to one over the other at this point?
You know,
given the size difference?
I don't think so. Really, I'm impressed by the riding, the technical riding of Iserbyt. He's able to keep pace with Toon Aerts on the descent when Toon Aerts is known to be a good bike handler. So that's showing just how strong he is in that way. So no, I don't see a big difference right now.
Sweck here in 5th place. The leader at 1 point early. Now Iserbyt back in front. Ahead of Toon Aerts on this switchback descent of Mount Crumpit.
Yeah, he's really going for it, pushing the pace here. You got Toon Aerts having a tough time trying to follow. Iserbyt, this might be an attack for the win here.
This is the biggest margin he's had.
Very comfortable. You can see him weaving his way around those corners. Very delicate. You got to be great on the brakes. Can't use them too much, but you need to use them, otherwise you slide into the fences. Toon Aerts letting him go in that descent, now having to chase back.
Now this is the first time we have seen a move like this from Iserbyt to get this kind of separation. When they come back around to the finish line area, they will have 2 laps left to go.
A little bit upset when his team.
Iserbyt's last big win was the World Cup in Hoogerheim last year as an under-23, so that's not as an elite, but it's a great way to finish your season and then line up here in the elite race, having a shot at it. He's definitely making the most of it.
And this is where he got some separation over Toon Aerts, who has that left foot on the ground, maintaining his balance.
So tire choice for the Telenet UCI team. Everyone is on a Grifo, which is kind of a mixed tire. It's not great for any kind of deep mud, but it's also not great for any kind of super high-speed course, but it's good for just about everything else. But with very low pressures, Toon Aerts 1.7 bar, which is you know, just over 22 psi. So not a ton of pressure on those tires. You need to allow them to roll over on the ground, get some traction wherever they can. Toon Aerts looks like he's having a hard time with that pace, already up and around that tree. That is Eli Iserbyt. You can see the body language of Toon Aerts really starting to show the struggle trying to follow that rider.
And Iserbyt looking pretty fresh here. Maybe taking advantage of the moment and the opportunity.
Yeah, he's really making good work of this course. I mean, he's just leaning into every single corner. He's showing he's got great trust in his tires. He's got some energy to pedal that thing around, and Toon Aerts really looking like a different rider. You know, first couple laps, and especially compared to last year, really having a hard time. We're still talking about the rider in 2nd place at the World Cup, but you know, compared to Iserbyt, really different story.
Iserbyt will have the lead, his largest of the day at the end of lap number 7. Toon Aerts in 2nd place, trailing by 5 seconds now as the gaps are getting bigger between the riders in the front 5. Here is Johnny Vermeesch in 3rd. He's lost a few seconds, now trailing by 19 as Iserbyt maybe going for the kill here, trying to expand on the lead over Toon Aerts, the defending champion, not only here in Iowa City, but in Waterloo, Wisconsin, where they will race next weekend as well.
But just 14 seconds off of our 2nd place.
The two Belgians have been battling it out all day long, but now the most separation we have seen between the two.
Well, now that that part of the race has started to settle down a little bit, we'll talk a little bit more about the riders who are making up our top 15. Just behind Vermeesch, you've got Dan Suta following along. Lawrence Swake still inside 30 seconds, but then there's a big gap back to Michael Van Toorn in 6th. He's almost a minute behind. Quentin Ehrman's now stuck in 7th. He's just with Jim Arnouts, his teammate Jens Adams, just behind him. Looks like now we're starting to see a little bit of change here of that lap time. I'll get back to it, take a look at this replay. Looking at Toon Aerts going up this climb. This is the part where it really shows just how much that attack by Eli Iserbyt is putting Toon Aerts into difficulty, and that is where our gap sits right now. But up Mount Crumpit once again, is Eli Iserbyt going to be able to climb this thing? Hops off, but will Toon Aerts have the legs to continue to ride?
Nope. Last 2 times up, he was able to ride it. This time he hops off. Toon Aerts really looks tired.
Yeah, that is a gap that I do not think is going to be closing anytime soon. Back to our top 15 riders here. We've got a lot of fans watching along that are desperate to know how their favorite riders are doing. But got Jim Arnouts, Jens Adams in 8th place, Lars Van der Haar in 9th. Quentin Ehrman's dropping all the way back to 10th place right now. Tough last couple laps for him. Tom Newson in 11th. Nicholas Klepp from Telenet Gauloise. Dieter Sweg, Thijs Aerts just behind him. But Gage Hecht from the United States in 15th place, having a great race. 2 minutes and 14 seconds back. You've got Kevin Suarez from Spain, but Curtis White back at 17th. And then Lance Haddad and Stephen Hyde both in the top 22 positions out on course right now.
The lead growing at the front, though. Iserbyt ahead of Aerts. Toon Aerts, the reigning national champion of Belgium, chasing another Belgian who himself is chasing his first ever World Cup win. And Iserbyt maybe smelling blood here, sensing that Aerts is tiring, fatigue is setting in, and trying to swell that lead even more. This is lap 8 of 10, almost 50 minutes in, and that's the gap between first and second place.
10 seconds is an eternity when you're talking about Mount Crumpit here. Toon Aerts looking up ahead, and he can't see him anymore. Iserbyt already turning the corner, trying to get a few more pedal strokes out of those tired legs. Taking a look behind him, see how that gap is looking like for Vermeesch. Is he going to be able to get up there? Iserbyt rocketing down the descent already. Look at him, tripod right now, 1 foot out on the inside. Got great traction. Again, you know, as the grass gets pulled up out of the ground, it gets slicker and slicker. It gets worse and worse, less and less traction to work with. Toon Aerts not at all like he was earlier in this race, trying to get a hold of things, get back into action here. You can see his 2 switchbacks behind Eli Iserbyt. The fans up here, they know exactly what it's like to ride this thing. It is so steep, it's like a ski slope. You know, it's not like this is an easy descent at all. Thankfully, it is not too wet, although I think a lot of fans up there would prefer it to be. Get some mud in there, but Toon Aerts looking like he's going to have a hard last 15 minutes of this race.
Is this it? I mean, is Toon Aerts done in your mind?
Well, I think it's only now a question of can he hold on to second place. He's got just about 20 seconds ahead of Gianni Vermeesch. If he were to continue to suffer, I think he might have a shot at having to do battle with Vermeesch. But you know, it's really going to be up to him to settle down, get back into his plan, get back into his pace, and keep that rider behind him.
And it's difficult for a rider like Toon Aerts, who won here last year, who was so good throughout the World Cup season a year ago, to be leading early on, be looking good, and then all of a sudden to see a young rider basically ride away from you.
Yeah, that is tough to handle mentally. You know, without having a couple races beforehand, you don't know if these things are going to happen. You know, you can kind of watch a rider's trajectory over time, and you kind of plot it and say, hey, you know what, that rider looks really good. Their fitness is on the rise. They've done really well. But since this is number 1, Eli Iserbyt wearing number 13, he is just taking advantage of that surprise factor and going for it. This is going to be a huge win for him if he's able to keep ahead of Toon Aerts.
21-year-old who turns 22 on the 22nd of October, so just over a month away from his birthday, but looking much fresher than this man, our defending champion, Toon Aerts.
Yeah, Iserbyt looking really in control of this thing. Each of those corners, you just hope that there's not going to be a moment where your tires lose traction, you slip out. But you know, when things are going well, they continue to go well. When you're in the groove, you're in the zone. That is exactly where Iserbyt is right now as he goes into what is going to be, I believe, 2 laps to go through start and finish.
End of lap 8, Iserbyt with the lead growing. Now Toon Aerts with that head down, realizing what is happening here in this initial race of the season. Losing time at the end of each of the last 2 laps. Now over 20 seconds back. Lost 16 seconds on that last lap alone. Yeah, now by 21 overall.
That's a big move in the wrong direction. Jennifer Michel, though, looks like he's now lost his sole handle on 3rd place. He's going to be joined by Dan Sota, also teammates with Iserbyt. So Paulo Cezanne really doing a good job of getting a couple riders in with the shot at the podium. He's going to be fighting against Vermeesh, but there's Lars Swake as well. So it looks like our last spot on the podium is definitely not going to be guaranteed for anyone right now.
It seems like that's going to be the closest race we will have for that final step of the podium, and maybe even for 2nd place, the way Toon Aerts is fading here late. But for this man, Iserbyt, he is riding away with what is going to be the biggest win of his career. Now, at this point, on the penultimate lap, knowing that your lead has grown to this margin, how do you manage the race from here?
Well, in some ways, it frees you up to hit this climb even harder. You know, you might think that I don't have someone breathing down my neck. I can go ahead and give this a shot, or it might make you be more conservative, where you kind of start to settle down a little bit, and you might actually take different sections and turns a little bit differently than you would under full flight. And actually, that's where a lot of mistakes are made. So it's a funny place to be in. You can either push a little harder or dial it back a little bit. You can do both.
Here's Toon Aerts in 2nd. And once again, jumping off to push his bike up Mount Crumpit.
Another time through the sandpit here. We've got Iserbyt really looking good in here, fully in control. There was a big sandpit at the last race in Cyclo leading into this, and watching a group of 5 or 6 riders hit that at full speed and seeing what came out the other side. Sandpits are always so tough to judge. But Vermeesh, strong run right here. He's getting a little bit of distance between him and Sota, trying to hold on to that 3rd.
Toon Aerts now through the sand.
He's going to have to battle.
A little bit slower. Looks like he's losing a little bit more pace. If he continues to gain, to lose space there, he's going to have a hard time holding on to 2nd.
Iserbyt, though, has looked good throughout. He has not shown any signs of slowing down, of fatiguing in any way.
No, that is a very, very quick climb. Very steep, not a ton of traction. You can see the slickness in that dirt. As the riders go across it, it releases a little bit more moisture, gets a little bit more slick. But his climb is going great. You can just see the difference. Remember the last time we saw Toon Aerts coming over that same section with the camera, putting a couple seconds every single time. And what a great feeling to look over your shoulder and know that there's not someone right there. Take a deep breath. You want to be able to hit this downhill with a little bit of calmness. You know, you got to be able to center yourself a little bit. Probably not too into yoga, I'm not sure, but you'd be channeling
Pilates,
it right now.
maybe.
Yeah.
A little kickboxing could help. what has impressed you most about him today?
Well, I'm very impressed with his technical ability. Toon Aerts is someone who is world-class bar none. I mean, he's the one doing tabletops over the big flyovers. He's able to take on the toughest, muddiest courses. But Iserbyt matching and now beating him soundly. You know, he has been world champion under 23 and junior, so it's not like he's new to the scene. But to come away with this first World Cup with a win would be such a big thing for a 21-year-old rider.
He's been at the front since the start. He was with Toon Aerts for a while, but has never been far from the front of this race. Now the sole leader here for the last couple of laps. And that margin at the front only growing here.
You know, someone I picked as a maybe podium position, Iserbyt, now turning that upside down, continuing to put time into Toon Aerts. It's like that's gotten a little bit bigger. Yeah, he's on his way. Toon Aerts, he's going to be able to go around this corner and take a look up the flyover and see exactly who's coming down that. See how much he has to work with. Iserbyt making quick work of that flyover. You know, traditionally here at Cyclo-cross, we've had weather of all kinds. Last year's race with Toon Aerts ahead of Wout van Aert was cold and windy. It was nasty, you know, mud, rain, everything was coming at you. But now it's just this totally different story. Iserbyt making this climb look really easy once again. Up out of the saddle. Have not seen many riders do that. Every single time he needs to hit the gas, he's able to do it, and he's got something there.
Winding around these turns, the lead back to that finish line area. And he will hear the bell momentarily for 1 lap left to go in this first cyclocross race of the new season on the World Cup. Iserbyt riding away with what will be his first win at this level. 9 laps down, and now 1 to go here in Iowa City.
That's a great bell to hear when you're off the front like this. You've got a nice gap over second place, and you hear that official ring the bell signifying you've got 1 lap to go, and it just brings you back into that moment where you can go even harder. You know you've got a great shot. Solid gap now, well over 20 seconds by the time he makes it across the line.
Toon Aerts here was 21 seconds down at the end of the last lap. And as he begins the final lap here, he is 33 behind. And now the battle for third place in the final spot of the podium. Dan Sota and Gianni Vermeesch. A battle that's been unfolding all day. And Lawrence Swig not out of it, trying to get back into the conversation here. He crashed earlier. Was at one point a group of 7 at the front of the race. Now he's part of this trio that are battling for third place with 1 lap left.
Vermeesch looking back, trying to figure out how he's going to do this. 2 teammates. How is he going to take on 2 strong riders now to fight for that last podium spot? He's going to have his hands full going into that. We'll check in with that a little bit later. We've got Michael Van Toor now going through just over 1 minute and 10 seconds. He's probably not going to make it up to that next group, but we've got Lars van der Haar and Corne van Kessel both trying to make it back also. 7th and 8th position for those.
All right, this is back to the very front. Final time up Mount Crumpit for Iserbyt, who will carry his bike over his shoulder. Just over the 1 hour mark. On to the final lap, the 10th of 10 here in Iowa City. Iserbyt riding away with the win here. And really an easy decision here with such a large lead of over half a minute. Comfortably dismounting and carrying his bike to the summit.
You know, Steve, that whole climb was grass a couple days ago, before all the riders have taken a chance to run up this thing. Just deteriorating the condition of that so much so that you know, it's even hard to run up it now. But riding up and over as they did earlier in the race, so impressive. You see here the battle for third.
Yeah, this is the most competitive race we have going on at the moment. Vermeesch, Sota, and Sweck. All three running up.
Excuse me, Steve there. Sota on the front. Vermeesch, bike on his shoulder. But Lawrence Sweck, he's a rider with a really good sprint on him. And I think that if he's able to keep in touch with those two riders, he's going to bring it to the line and have a good shot at getting that last spot.
Iserbyt, our leader. And what a feeling this is going to be for him. Just moments away from winning his first senior level World Cup race. And he'll be able to really enjoy the moment, soak in the atmosphere, as he has such a large lead solo at the front.
The rider he lost the under-23 World Championship title to, Tom Pidcock from Great Britain, not here. Also, one of those riders deciding not to come to the U.S. for these first opening World Cups, instead focusing on the Road World Championships. But that is a rider who's of Iserbyt's skill level, you know, his talent level, rocketing up through those ranks. Tom Pidcock looking at this coverage, watching this World Cup win go to his nemesis.
And not taking any chances. A very measured, cautious, conservative ride down this hill through these switchbacks.
Yeah, it looks like he's just inching his way around those corners. Really tough conditions. I'm sure that that section of the course has gotten slicker as the day's gone on.
And the race for third. Sota, Vermeesch, Sweck. How is this battle going to get sorted out? What are the dynamics and the strategic maneuvers you expect to be made?
Well, right there, Dan Sota going as hard as he can on that section, trying to get some separation, seeing if he can crack Gianni Vermeesch, the Greyfin rider just behind him. Unable to do that, they're going to start the descent together. Lawrence Sweck is going to watch this. He's almost going to hope that one of those two riders has a problem so he can sneak around, but right now, doesn't look like he does. He has the legs to do it, so he's going to see if he can do it on the bike. Sota coming into this first left-hand turn. Still making it around. He's got both feet in there. Lawrence Sweck taking a little bit of a wider line. Vermeesch tucking it inside, shoulders just rubbing on that inside stake. So tough to make it around this, especially when you're trying to beat the rider right next to you. Sota cleanly through there. Looks like it will be those three riders going at least into the pit together. We'll see about if they're able to go to the line together.
Back to Iserbyt at the front. Toon Aerts is the rider in second place. We'll see him momentarily. Trailing by over half a minute. Should be coming over this flyover any moment now, as Iserbyt is back up and into the forest.
Last time up and over that little climb, he's taking a look over. He has got this. This is going to be an easy sail all the way back to the finish line from here. He can really let it soak in a little bit. Looking around, he doesn't see that Belgian tricolor of Toon Aerts. He's got this all to himself. Coming around these corners nice and easy. Yeah, I think he's going to start to get that that recognition of what is about to happen for him.
The 21-year-old, a world under-23 champion, Iserbyt, 1 day removed from Friday the 13th, wearing number 13, but all good luck for him today. His first ever World Cup win comes here in Iowa City.
Massive victory for that team, sending the full squad over here. First time World Cup winner, beating last year's champion, Toon Aerts, Belgian national champion.
His fellow Belgian, Aerts, who really dominated last year, won both of the U.S. stops to open up the World Cup season. A European champion, who's also had success on the road as well, was fourth at the Tour of Belgium on the road this year, and also won the mountains competition. Ertz, the 25-year-old, is going to finish second. And now this is the real battle about to unfold for third place in the final step on the podium.
Well, we need to see that sprint finish. Those three riders coming into the straightaway just behind Ertz. It's going to be led out by Gianni Vermees, the white rider. He's going to be leading it out. Looks like he's going to be able to hold them off. Gianni Vermees getting beaten by Dan Sota there.
Yeah, it is Dan Sota, the Belgian, who finishes in third, final spot on the podium. Just ahead of Vermees, and then Sweck in fifth.
Coming around in the final few meters. Great finish by Dan Sota. Two teammates, first and third on a World Cup podium. Looks like this is going to be a sniper attack.
Oh, look at this. Michael Van Torenhout wasn't paying attention.
You know, I'll take a sixth place at a World Cup. Don't you worry about that. Lars van der Haar showing that his race was not over yet. Van Torenhout feeling a little bit embarrassed by that one.
Lars van der Haar, the 28-year-old Dutchman who has 9 World Cup wins, as well as a European championship, 2-time national champion, and racing all the way to the line. Here's Quentin Hermans, who we saw crash out there on the course. He was in the front for a short time in the opening few laps. Winds up 9th on the day.
Probably hoping for more. Quentin Hermans, one of the riders who's been on the podium here in the past, hoping to come out of his first race with a podium, perhaps at least the top 5. So I think he's going to be disappointed. Tom Musin, on the other hand, getting a top 10. I think he will be happy.
Jens Adams, just outside the top 10, over 2 minutes back.
Trying to take off a little bit. I think that it is a reaction to what just happened there. Michael Van Torenhout not very happy with his race today.
Nicholas Kleppa, another one of the Belgians, finishing in 12th. 15 Belgians altogether in this race of 52 riders today. 16 Americans, never really saw any at the front.
Well, there's Jamie Driscoll right there, number 31, but I believe that we should see Curtis White coming in. Last lap, he came through in 15th, so he should be here any second. Gage Hecht came through last lap in 18th, and Lance Haddett in top 20, so we still have our 3 Americans coming across soon. As we continue the Belgian domination, though. Although it is, you know, Ellie Iserbyt is Belgian. You know, Toon Ertz as well, obviously national champion, but you've got Corne van Kessel up there from the Netherlands. You know, at least there's a little bit of change there. Lars van der Haar as well. Curtis White coming through at 15th. Strong finish for Curtis. Wearing that Pan Am Championships jersey in white. That is a competition held on each of the continents around the world. And so his victory there last year was a big move for him. Gage Hecht in the red, coming just behind the Spanish rider.
And getting a top 20 as a result. Vincent Bastens coming in 17th.
Pardon me.
Now you can go 20 places deep. And riders are 4 minutes back of our winner, Ellie Iserbyt. This is what it looks like when you win your first ever World Cup race in the inaugural race of the new season. The Belgian in Iowa City is a dominant winner here today. Toon Ertz, the defending champion, finishes in second. And then the tight race for third.
There we go. This is a good shot. Yeah, led out by Vermees, unable to hold Dan Sota back, who just rockets past him inside the final 50 meters. He had that position dialed. He was waiting for the chance to go for it. Great podium finish for him.
So an exciting sprint for third as the crowd mills around here. Another good one in Iowa City on a big sports day in the state of Iowa. As just about 2 hours northwest of here in Ames, it's the big Iowa State football game going on right now. In-state rivalry, tough ticket. So you have that happening in Ames. The Cyclo-cross season kickoff here in Iowa City. And now the final results. Ellie Iserbyt ahead of Toon Aerts and Dan Sota on the podium. Sota precisely 1 minute back on the final step, just ahead of Johnny Vermeesch, who he beats in the sprint for third. Vermeesch and Sweck rounding out the top 5. Lars Vanderhaar winning a sprint for 6th, ahead of Michael Van Torenhout. And Tom Newson closing out the top 10. Top American Curtis White with a top 15 on the number. And also an American with a top 20 as well here today on home soil.
Well, Gage Hecht and Lance Haddad, both riders finishing up their road season recently with Tour de l'Avenir, the U.S. national team. So they're making full use of the mileage that they were able to do. One of the biggest stage races in the world for the younger athletes hoping to go to the World Tour. So big finish for them. Great to see representation in those higher numbers right there. So Jamie Driscoll just come across. Drew Dillman also just came across before him, 24th and 27th position.
Well, let's take a look back at how the race unfolded here in Iowa. This was the start, and it was quickly Toon Aerts going to the front.
Neuenhuis there in the red. Sunweb unable to make it. We just saw him come across the finish. Really tough rest of the race. But Iserbyt not showing himself just yet. He was quick to the front, though. You see in this large group, he's able to follow Toon Aerts with the first attack of the day. So there they are laying their cards on the table.
And Toon Aerts was the strongest at the outset, leading for the first few laps, but Iserbyt was never far behind.
Yeah, really biting off a little bit more than he could chew, because he didn't realize that Iserbyt was going to be this strong. He was going to be able to fight him even if he could ride Mount Crumpit. Unlike almost any other rider out there, he was going to be chased by this rider on the right-hand side the entire time. Group coalescing behind, back and forth, different sizes to and from, but Lawrence Wake there, you can see just the effort it took to stay in that front group, ultimately unable to hold on to it. Vermeesch in the white showing himself as one of the major players for the podium.
Toon Aerts caliber that at some point.
Toon Aerts still leading at this point through the sand, but Iserbyt right on his wheel. This is when we still had a large group at the front. At one point, had 7 riders really battling for that leading position.
Yeah, this is the time that both of these two were able to ride it. Iserbyt matching and then able to go right by him. Vermeesch showing that strength, unable to hold on to the podium finish, but separating himself, getting chased by Swake. Dan Sota.
And this is where Iserbyt started to finally gap off Toon Aerts.
Well, keeping the pressure on for as long as he did, it was only a matter of time before Toon Aerts was cracking enough to get dropped. But here he is, Eli Iserbyt coming into the finish. Powell's Bingoal team ecstatic with that victory. Toon Aerts yet again on the podium, not on the first step, unfortunately, but Dan Sota just ripping that third position away from Johnny Vermeesch, one of the strongest riders for the rest of the race. So great finish for him.
What an excellent race. That couldn't have gone any better for a young man who probably was in the minority.
So the podium presentation coming up shortly here in Iowa City at the Johnson County Fairgrounds, as we kick off the 2019-20 Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup season. First of 9 races and the first of 2 here in the U.S. Next week it's on to Waterloo, Wisconsin, just outside of the capital of Madison, at the Trek Factory headquarters for race number 2. Before the season breaks for a few weeks and then resumes in Europe in mid-October. Stops this season also include Bern, Switzerland, the Czech Republic, 3 stops in Belgium, 1 in France, and also in the Netherlands at the end of January. Well, this is the 4th year that Iowa City has been part of the World Cup.
Yeah, you know, the World Cup coming to America was a really important thing. So it's nice to see a first weekend kickoff like this. Can't wait for the next one.
Eli Iserbyt. Paul Herreges zei tijdens de uitzending, het baasje is in orde. Wel, meer dan in orde.
Ja, meer dan in orde. In Eklo was het ook al heel goed. Vandaag heel goed, dus ja, ik ben content.
Wanneer wist je dat je het verschil kon maken?
Goh, eigenlijk dacht ik dat Toon wel heel de tijd beter was, maar dan plots bovenaan de klim valt hij helemaal stil. En eigenlijk blijf ik heel de tijd tempo rijden dat ik in het wiel reed. Ik wou mij niet echt opblazen achter de bocht en ik kreeg eigenlijk een constant tempo en enkel op de klim versnelde ik en dat was toch genoeg om een mooie kloof uit te bouwen.
In de derde of vierde ronde maakte je ineens heel kwaad tegen de mensen in de materiaalpost. Waarom was dat?
Ja, het was iets met mijn pa allemaal afgesproken en er was een klein meningsverschil, maar...
Mogen we weten wat dat was?
Dat is tussen de familie Iserbyt.
Wat wel duidelijk was, jullie ploeg was ook ongelooflijk sterk vandaag.
Ja, absoluut. Laurens was ook heel goed, Daan is nu derde. We hebben heel de zomer heel hard gewerkt met elkaar en ik denk dat we ons niveau hebben opgekrikt ook aan elkaar. En nu zie je wel dat dat wel loont.
Denk je dat jullie Toon Aerts ook zo'n beetje hebben kunnen afmatten?
Ja, dat wel. Toon kon hier eigenlijk alleen maar verliezen. En, vorige week in Eeklo heb ik iets te veel getoond dat ik de beste was. En Mario de Klerk zei het vanochtend nog, als ik goed ben dan moet ik gewoon profiteren. En in het begin kon ik ook niet echt veel rapper, Toon reed een heel strak tempo. En ik wist dat het op het einde heel lastig ging zijn. En Toon viel stil en ik kon dat tempo nog aan. Dus ja, dan kun je wel rap het verschil maken hier.
Je bent een wereldbekermanche, Eli, en je mag die witte trui aantrekken.
Ja, het is nog niet echt doorgedrongen, maar ja, ik ben heel content. Ik kan niets anders zeggen.
Proficiat. In het Engels een paar vragen nog. Eli Iserbyt, first race of the season in the World Cup, first win. How does that feel?
It feels very good. I knew from last week that I was on the best of my level, and yeah, I did everything this summer to be good in September and October because I knew Mathieu and Wout would not start these races. So yeah, I took advantage of that, and I think I'm in the best form of my life.
When did you know you were the best man in the race?
I knew when I got a gap on Toon that I just should ride the same pace, and we'll see. I was always riding on 95%, so I knew if he was coming back, I had a little punch to get another gap, but it wasn't necessary, and I just rode my own race, and that was enough.
And now you get to wear the white jersey.
Yeah, white is very nice.
Congratulations, thank you.
I like how he said that he knew Mathieu van der Poel wasn't going to be racing here, so he figured he'd take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, pretty practical for a young rider, but when you have that kind of a vacuum, you got to fill it, and it better be you.
Toon Aerts, geen tweede overwinning op rij hier in Iowa City voor jou. Wat is jouw eigen analyse?
Dat het eigenlijk in het begin van de wedstrijd wel vrij goed ging, maar ik toen meer moest focussen op de mannen van de Rode Brigade, om het zo te zeggen. Ze waren toch met heel wat renners weer vooraan. Maar ik kon wel altijd goed van voor de klim aanvatten en dat was hier wel heel belangrijk. En op een gegeven moment kon ik dan samen met Eli daar een keer boven rijden en zo konden we met twee weggeraken. Maar dat kostte eigenlijk zoveel krachten dat ik mezelf een beetje opblazen met de warmte hier. En ik kreeg echt wel een klop van de hitte. En ik had eigenlijk nog alle moeite om mijn eigen tempo te rijden. En was er geen denken meer aan om de overwinning te nemen.
Heeft die Rode Brigade je ook een beetje afgemat?
Voor een deel wel natuurlijk, maar ik denk dat het vooral het parcours was dat vandaag heel lastig was. En daar die hitte nog eens bij, dat was toch zeker niet te onderschatten. Het is niet wat we de rest van de winter gaan zien, denk ik. Of hoop ik althans, want dit is echt wel heel zwaar.
Je leek soms ook iets meer moeite te hebben om het lopen en het fietsen af te wisselen. Als je van die fiets sprong, normaal gaat dat vlotter bij jou. Klopt dat?
Ja, misschien bleef ik soms iets te lang op de fiets zitten, waardoor ik mezelf wat vastreed in de voetstappen die vorig jaar waren gemaakt tijdens, toen het wat slijk was. Er waren heel wat putten wel op die klim gekomen. En als je niet zoveel snelheid hebt, raak je daar niet zomaar doorheen. En misschien had ik soms iets sneller voor het afstappen moeten kiezen om de snelheid mee door te trekken in het lopen. Maar uiteindelijk probeer ik toch altijd boven de fietsen, want dat is toch altijd wat een renner moet proberen. Het maximaal te halen, dat is boven fietsen, dat is een paar keer gelukt.
Nu wel een weekje extra om te acclimatiseren. Gaat dat helpen, denk je?
Ja, ik heb het toch nog wel nodig, denk ik. Ik had vooral gisteren nog wel wat twijfels richting vandaag. Vorig jaar had ik minder last van een jetlag. Het was nu ook een dag vroeger de koers. Vorig jaar was het zondag, nu was het zaterdag. Vanmorgen was ik nog altijd om 5:30 wakker geworden. Dus als je niet kunt slapen tot 8 uur of zo, dan dat vreet dat ook wel wat krachten. Dus ik hoop nu morgen en overmorgen goed te recupereren en een klein beetje te trainen. En hopelijk in Waterloo, in onze thuiswedstrijd, bij trek van de jetlag af te zijn.
Dankjewel. Engels. Straks in het Engels. Toon Aerts, no back-to-back here in Iowa City. What's your analysis of the race?
Yeah, it was a quite hard race in the beginning. I had a little bit struggles with the guys from the red guys from Powell's bingo. They were pretty much riders in the front, so that was not easy to counter the attacks and do my own thing. But half race I can ride Mount Crumpit together with Ali, and we made a gap, and then it was everyone for himself. So it was quite hard with the heat, and that was my problem in the end.
Did you feel the conditions today?
Yeah, the track is very hard with the 3 climbs and fast pieces in between. But the heat today was the terrible thing. Together, those 2 things were very hard, and they killed me today.
Thank you very much.
You see how hard it was on him, Tim.
Well, you know, he's saying so much about you know, how to adapt to this kind of racing. It is very difficult, but it's in a new place, and you know, he's been here before. It just shows how difficult it is to really pin it. So he did it enough to win twice last year, but you know, today he had a hard time.
Daan Soete, leuke strijd voor die 3e plaats.
Ja, het was nog nipt op het einde. In het midden van de koers had ik wel een dipje en ja, ik moest mijn eigen tempo rijden omdat het echt heel warm was. En als ik een beetje te vroeg die finale inspanning leverde, dan ging ik echt stilvallen.
Die sprint, hoe heb jij die beleefd?
Ja, gewoon Gianni zette van heel ver aan en ik zat redelijk in het wiel en ik kon er links naast. En ja, hij deed de deur ook niet dicht, dus dat was ook wel ferm van hem.
Het was iets minder warm dan op voorhand werd verwacht, maar het leek me toch nog altijd enorm zwaar. Hoe was het voor jou?
Ja, ik denk dat de temperatuur wel meeviel, maar de vochtigheid is hier heel hoog. Dus ja, je zweet heel rap en dat voelt heel bedrukt aan. Dus ja, de droge warmte is misschien zelfs beter te hanteren.
Het is nu een weekje om dat gewoon te worden.
Ja, andere jaren. Waterloo is iets ander klimaat daar. Het is niet ver van hier, maar meestal toch iets drogere lucht.
Dankjewel. Daan Soete, congratulations, 3rd place, but what a battle for that 3rd spot.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a hard battle, and I was happy to take the 3rd place. It was not easy, and with the warm conditions, so I'm happy.
Tell me about that sprint.
Gianni went from far, and I was directly in the wheel, and yeah, I could overtake him at the left, and he didn't close the door. So yeah, that was also nice and fair from him.
Does this give you confidence for next week?
Yes, the track suits me very well there, and I hope to be like today, good or even better.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, they will encounter a different course next week in Waterloo, Wisconsin from the one they faced here today in Iowa City.
Well, different, but when you've got good form, it will definitely translate. So Dan, hoping to do that. You know, talking about that sprint, it was Gianni Vermeersch just going early, and he knew that he could get around him. Luckily, as he said, the door wasn't closed by Gianni on the left-hand side, so he's able to squeeze through. But you know, having a little bit of confidence like that, it's a great way to lead into the 2nd race of the series, and that's what this is all about. You know, you have to be good and able to score points throughout the season. When you start off with a big win like this, with a podium place, it sets you up for even better racing down the road.
The podium ceremony now underway for our top 3. And the Iserbyt, the man in the middle, and on the top step of the podium here today, flanked by Toonerts in 2nd place on his right, and that man on his left, Daan Soete. But a Belgian sweep of the podium.
And one of the features of the Iowa City World Cup stop is that our podium presenters are patients at the beneficiary of this event. Haven't gone through cancer battles themselves.
The proceeds from this event do go to University of Iowa hospitals and clinics.
And now we call upon Christelle Vier, UCI
As you see,
representative,
the placings once again for the 3 Belgians on the podium, Iserbyt, Ertz, and Soete.
the leader of the Telenet UCI Cyclo-cross.
Well, that's just the first of 9 races on the calendar. What does this tell you about what we might see the rest of the season?
Well, I think it's a waiting game right now, because what they're trying to do, someone like Iserbyt, is to take those points when they can. You know, I think this is really starting off, confirmation of a great career ahead of him. You know, he's had a lot of success in these other age groups and winning world titles, and he'll continue to do so. But I think all of these riders are thinking of what is Mathieu van der Poel going to be able to do, as well as when is Wout van Aert going to be able to come back to full form. So while that is kind of unfolding around them, they're going to be able to be up here going for the podium, going for the wins.
One national anthem fits all.
Well,
the Belgian national anthem for the 3 on the podium, all 3 spots.
We hear it a lot in this sport. Belgians have done a great job of dominating for a long time, and you can see right there, Iserbyt winning this race, leading the way. Toon Aerts in second, Dan Sota, Johnny Vermeesch, Lawrence Swake. The first Dutchman, Lars van der Haar there, but Van Tornhout, Arnouts, Hermans, and Musen making up that top 10.
A lot of Belgian flags on that first page, the top 10 here in Iowa City today. It's called Cyclo-cross because this is an event that used to be held during the holidays, so it had that Christmas holiday theme to it, but it moved here to September to fit the World Cup calendar, and that'll now do it for us. For Tim Johnson, I'm Steve Schlanger. Thanks for joining us for the opening race of the 2019-20 Telenet UCI Cyclocross World Cup season in Iowa City.
That gets to be a